NineTen, NineTen, NineTen in the morning.
Yay. Hey, viewers of the NineTen podcast, whether you're a NineTen student, a NineTen leader, or maybe somebody who just stumbled upon this podcast and is checking it out. For the month of June, we're tackling some topics that fall under the category of mental health. So some anxiety stuff, some depression, suicidal ideation, and kind of tackling our cultural moment right now where so many of us are wrestling with this and struggling with it. And so interviewing a couple counselors, a couple people that have walked through this personally. I shared a little bit of my story in this month's podcast. And so I just wanted to give you a heads up before you dive into this, before you watch it or listen to it on Spotify, that these are some of the things that we're talking about. And so if this is a triggering topic for you, or this is while you're listening, you're wrestling with something, please don't wrestle alone. We would love to talk to you. Reach out to us here in NineTen or at North Coast Church. We'd love to put you in touch with the right people. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Check out this episode. Yo, what's up, NineTen? I got Kip Strawbridge, Wagon Master Shep, on the podcast today. And Kip, you're one of the more interesting human beings to me. We've done a fireside chats together. Yeah. We go way back.
We do.
Way back. I want to start this off asking this question. What's your first memory of me?
Oh, Lord.
I was probably like 11.
I think you were like a little kid coming to camp with your dad.
Yeah.
And he would make the rounds, come to camp and talk about missions. And there was all these little rugrats running around behind him.
Yeah.
And you were one of them.
The smallest rugrat.
Yes, you were the smallest rugrat.
Man. And so you worked how many years at Hume Lake Christian Camps?
I added it up one time. In total, it was 18 and a half years.
Wow.
Spread over 2 different runs.
Wow. Yeah. Originally from Alabama.
Mississippi.
Close. Same, honestly.
My family
same thing.
lives in Alabama.
Same. I'm just kidding. They're not the same. They're
I grew up in Mississippi, about 5 minutes from Alabama, right on the border. Yeah, Mississippi and Alabama, if you look on them, we call them the book states. If you open them up, it's like a straight line between them.
Okay.
And they look like mirror image. Sister states, we call them.
Okay. Was Mississipippi as fun for you to spell growing up as it was for me to grow up?
No, but it was... I borderlined on annoying when everyone was like, "Oh, Mississippi,
M-I-S-S-I-S-S-I-P-P-I."
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yep."
Like, heard that one.
Kind of knew how to do that most of my life living there.
But everybody thinks they're original.
Yeah, except we called it crooked letter. Yeah.
Wait, why?
M-I, crooked letter, I, crooked letter, I, humpback, I.
Okay.
That's how you memorize it.
That's
so
next
if you're
level.
From Mississippi, that's what you say.
That's next level
so
stuff.
when people say SSISS, you know they're not from Mississippi.
What was it like growing up in Mississippi?
It was fun. I grew up in the woods pretty much most of my life. I had to come home when the sun goes down. There were no street lamps. So when the sun goes down, be home before dark kind of thing. And we were BMX bikers. We were tree climbers. We were all that. So, yeah, lived in a pretty rural area. Probably similar to how you grew up, just not the jungle.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I kind of grew up in a concrete jungle.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Quito's like 4 million people.
Yeah, that's true.
Massive city. But I mean, we would go down to the Amazon quite a bit, whenever teams were in town.
So imagine your afternoons at the Amazon was like my life.
Yeah. Holy cow. Yeah. Nuts. What was the first creature that you killed?
Oh, Lord. I don't know.
Maybe an unpopular question these days.
The one that I remember the most, I would say this. I killed a little robin with a BB gun once. My sister, hated me for it.
You
I won't go into the gross details, but
okay.
I remember it vividly.
Dude, no joke. One time, we moved out of the city out to this place called El Condado, and it was on much more of like a foresty, like Andes Mountain vibe. Like that was my first dirt bike ever. I got a 1986 XR 250, and I would rip it around the forest behind our house. We were like 30 minutes outside the city, and I had a BB gun, like you do, and all my friends were over, and one of my friend's older brothers was there, and I was like, "Hey, I'll give you $10 if you can shoot that." This is messed up. It was a hummingbird.
Oh wow!
Which those things are like
that's hard,
fast. Yeah. So to me, I'm like, "Oh, I'll give you $10 if you can shoot that hummingbird."
No chance, right?
No chance.
Yeah.
Homie lines it up, boom, drops it. Hummingbird just hits the deck, and all of us were like, oh, and instantly we all felt horrible, right? Like
You just
nobody
killed a
feels
hummingbird.
good about killing a hummingbird.
The most innocent bird of all.
The most innocent bird of all.
They're like the unicorns of the
Yeah,
bird
it was,
world.
dude. Honestly,
Yeah.
I still to this day feel bad about it.
Yeah, you
but the
should.
worst part was our neighbor witnessed it,
Oh,
and he
no.
came over and he lit us
I bet.
up.
Right.
Like he was
probably
all
had
about
like 10
this.
bird feeders hanging
Yeah,
out on his backyard.
endangered
You
bird,
You
and
killed all of his best friends.
golly, I killed some endangered hummingbird in Ecuador.
Yeah.
That still haunts me to this day. We took that same BB gun and we would make spray paint bombs.
Okay.
You ever done this?
No.
You take a spray paint can and you put it in a brown paper bag.
Mm-hmm.
You light the brown paper bag on fire and then you shoot it.
Oh, yeah.
And
okay.
the like small hole in the spray paint can releases and it makes this like
Then the fire,
yeah,
and all that.
it's pretty sweet. So we filmed a freaking awesome YouTube video back in the day,
Of course you
right? This
did.
is like 2008, 2009. And we would put like our After Effects on and everything, but we were roaming around the city with this BB gun making spray paint bombs, and the cops started chasing us.
Oh, I bet.
And so we ran into this trophy burger. I'll never forget. But two of my friends were out front, and they like pinned him down onto the hood of the car.
Oh, gosh.
And so we all come out. There's no back entrance to Trophy Burger. We all come out, and we're like speaking in Spanish. One of my buddies doesn't speak Spanish. He's from Texas,
no.
and we're like, it's just a toy, it's not a real
Right.
gun. And printed on the side of it in English is "This is not a toy."
Of course, right.
Yeah, of course. I'm like, look, I'll shoot this dude like in the calf. Like it's not gonna. But he doesn't. He has no
Right.
clue what we're saying. Right? It was great. The things you
funny.
can do
Right.
when you're
Oh, yeah.
when the rules are a little bit
BB
different.
gun mischief we had was next
Oh.
level. I got shot right between the eyes once, right here.
And definitely not wearing goggles.
I was on the roof of the house at the time while my friend was behind a tree. I popped out to shoot at him. He'd already shot, and I popped out, and it was like one of those like Christmas story moments where I like froze, and the BB got like the size of a softball and then hit me square between the eyes and ricocheted.
Oh
like
my
I saw it, and I started
gosh.
bleeding right between the eyes, and I was like, oh my god,
That
I
could have
almost shoot
gone.
my eye out.
That could have gone a lot worse.
Yeah.
And that was
Could've
like
been bad.
that was pre days where like you would be wearing like the safety
Oh yeah,
protective
I don't think we
glasses.
owned safety glasses. Yeah,
You
This
didn't
was
know
a
what the
BB
word
gun war
safety
in
meant.
my yard. Yeah, and I jumped off the roof, threw my gun off the roof, jumped off the roof, and then ran inside. And I was like, "Oh no, there's no way to hide this." Like
You
that
were
was my
more
first
concerned
thought,
about your
right?
parents getting
Oh, yeah.
mad than like your
way
own
more
injury.
than it hurt. Oh yeah, way more than it hurt.
Golly.
Yeah.
Okay. Briefly, this is one of my favorite stories, Kip Strawbridge stories of all time, is you and Derek Gear, who ironically are all on staff together now,
Yes.
disappearing into the woods up at Hume Lake Christian Camps
Oh yeah.
with the goal to
Yeah.
find a new path, right?
Yeah.
You like hiking
Well,
where there's not a trail.
Yeah, here's the story. So I would create what we would call these death marches, where I would look at a topo map and I would try to find a trail that would begin an interesting place to go and a distance in between it. That
Which,
I think
by the
you
way,
could-
that has nothing to do with Topo Chico. That would be
Yeah.
topography.
This is a
for
topography
all of our
map,
listeners out
so that
there.
we could see the elevation gain and like track it out and go, okay, this should be doable in a day, but you might not make it. That was kind of the goal for finding it, figuring it out. So
Kip's definition of fun.
Right.
You might not make it.
off trail. So the idea was like, if someone else has been there, what's the point? That was kind of the idea.
I love
so
it.
we had this one place that everybody went to called Tarzan Falls, and everybody would go there, jump off of it. But I knew that Tarzan Falls started somewhere.
I went cliff jumping there with
been
your
there.
wife when she was pregnant.
Yes, my wife.
That's
jumped
how
off of it
gnarly you
pregnant.
guys are.
Yeah, it's fun.
I was there on my birthday. I think it was my 21st it was my 21st birthday because I was hiking in with one of those green Gatorade with the orange top,
Yep.
and it had Gatorade in it.
Right.
And so I'm like hiking, and somebody in the trail behind me was like, "Hey, can I have a sip of that?" And I threw it to them, and they drank it, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, I thought that was water." And I was like, "It is my 21st birthday,"
That
like
was
joking.
yeah.
And then
Quick
later
joke,
on,
right?
I was up top, the like tall one, the 55
Oh, yeah.
footer or whatever, and somebody was like, "Should he be jumping if he's been drinking?" And I was like, "Drink? What are you talking about?" It was Gatorade.
funny.
But they heard me say that
Right.
and think.
So that's why
anyways, yes.
it's your 21st.
Yeah, it was my fault. But
Yeah, she's
anyways, your
been
wife
there.
is
She
just
would
as
go there
gnarly
all
as you
the
are.
time. So crossing the river anytime you can get across, we loved it. So I just knew, hey, if there's a waterfall, it has to start somewhere. And so
Sure.
I looked up the map and was like, hey, this looks like some fun terrain. A couple of other spots that might be some new jumping spots or something. So we had our one friend drop us off at the top of where the water originated, somewhere nearby, the closest road we could get in. And then the night before, we dropped a car off at the bottom. And so it was like we were going to get dropped off here. We had to get to the car and get home. And the goal was like eat burgers in the snack shop when we're done kind of thing. So we get to this one point where we hit this new waterfall. I'd hiked to the bottom to it before, but from the top, the rock was literally like slick marble covered in baby powder. Like that's how smooth it was. Oof. And I was like, I'm not going near the edge of this. There's nothing to tie off on. There's nothing. We had a rope with us.
It is good to know that you have some limits.
Yeah, we have some limits. And I was like, hey, I don't think we can make it over this safely at least. So we're going to have to like back up and go over the next ridge and get into the next draw, which is a dry creek bed. So we're leaving the water. I was like, fill up your water bottles, fill up your bellies. We're leaving the trail, And so we had to go up and over through Whitethorn and Manzanita, then down a huge shale, ravine. And on this side, it was all poison oak. And so we had to like hike through all this poison oak to get down. We rappelled. And I remember this one spot we got to, I was like, all right, when we go down this, there's no turning back. Like we can't come back up from this spot. So we rappelled down. And then
I need to know. For me, like backpacking, there's plenty of times when I'm backpacking that I'm like, this is the worst thing ever. Why am I doing this? This is miserable. Like, I hate this with everything I am.
Yeah.
But then like you get to the campsite or even afterwards, like looking back, telling the stories, like that's what makes it beautiful.
Oh yeah.
Like are there moments like that for you, or are you just enjoying it the entire time?
I would go do it again. Yeah, I would go do it again right now. I love doing it.
But
in the moment.
Are there moments though in the moment where you're like, what am I doing?
There've been other ones, yes. This one, no. This one was fun. I loved this one.
So the whole time you're just
the whole time I'm like, this is fun. Come on, guys, let's go.
Poison Oak. Yeah.
We found one spot we were like cliff jumping off of. It was super sweet. Rappelled down another ravine. Going up over that and down the shale. It's just fun. You like jump and then you just land and you just slide down the shale.
You feel like
rock.
you're on a different planet.
Yeah, it's like surfing rocks. So it's just fun stuff. And then we get to this ravine at the end, which was, I think, parallel to this cliff, but in a lower altitude. So it should be easier to get down, or maybe our rope would be long enough kind of thing. So we get to it, but this time, because we'd gone so slow and we had taken more time than normal, the sun had gone down. And we're in a canyon, so it gets dark in the bottom faster. And I was like, man, this is timing-wise, is our last-ditch effort. We got to figure this out or we're done.
Right.
So I was like, lower me over the side, and I've got a headlamp. And so by this time, you can't even see the bottom. It's like, that's how dark it's getting. So I tie myself to the end of the rope, and they lower me down off of this like
Do you have
tree.
Do you have like a harness on?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I had a harness on, tied myself to the end of the rope. They lowered me down. So this is like a 150-foot rope. So I was probably 100 feet down with a headlamp shining down, and I couldn't see the bottom. And I was like, pull me back up. They pulled me back up, and I was like, all right, find somewhere to sleep.
So who is this, Derek and...
This was Derek and probably 3 or 4 other guys. Okay. I can't remember
so all of them are like pulling on the rope.
Yeah, they pull me back up. I get to the top.
And you're just dangling off this cliff 100 feet.
Yeah. And I was like, hey, find a place to sleep. And they're like, what? And I was like, well, we're not going to make it any farther tonight, safely at least. And they're like, ha ha ha. And I'm like, no, seriously, like find a place to sleep. And so we had like shorts, T-shirts. It got to like 46 degrees that night.
Oh my!
And we were like soaking wet. We had one bag, like the bag the rope came in has like a little ground cloth. Like that was the only like bedding we had for the whole night. Luckily, one guy brought a lighter, so we like had a little fire. But we weren't supposed to be having a fire back there. But it was do or die, so we did it anyway. And it was one of those things where you put rocks around it, and then you just all night you're trading the rocks out and hugging the rock to stay warm. So we did that all night long, and you're just like shivering, and then whoever wakes up like throws some more sticks on the fire. And then the sun comes up in the morning, and then we're like, hey, we can see now. So we tied ourselves all to the rope, spaced out like ice climbers, and we traversed this ravine of like loose rock until we got down to the flat ground again, and then we were home free. So, yeah.
How mad were your wives?
Well, this is the funny thing. My wife's side of the story is funny, too, because all the other wives came to her and was like, they're not back. What do we do? And she's like, just wait a little longer.
Right.
And then they're like,
she's like, I've been here
1
before.
a.m. It's 1 a.m. Where are they? Where are they? She's like, they're probably fine. They're just sleeping somewhere. And they're like, what if they're dead? She's like, well, then what are we going to do? It's like.
This is the pregnant cliff jumping woman.
Exactly. So she's like, they'll be fine, I'm sure. So they had this whole triangulation and radios, and they had like search and rescue on the horn. And Michael's like, don't worry about search and rescue. They're fine. They're either that or there's nothing to find, one or the other, So we walk in at about 10:30 the next morning. And as we walk in, and we actually pass Boyden's Cave. It's like a national park cave. And the lady at the booth goes, are you guys from Hume? And we're like, yep. And they're like, they're waiting for you in the parking lot. So we roll in. They're like, dude, 20 more minutes. We were about to like send out search and rescue.
Oh my gosh.
We were like, what for?
We're fine.
We're fine.
We're a little tired.
So I was like, cold. Is the snack shop open? So I was ready to eat by that point.
Golly.
Yeah, we didn't have dinner or breakfast yet.
Jeez, man.
It's fun. So Derek never went with me again.
Yeah, no,
He was like, "That's it.
That makes sense.
I'm gonna go camping."
That's
now
probably Amy's
in a
decision.
tent." Yeah,
No,
she won't let
no,
me
it
let him
is.
go with me.
But okay, so this brings up an interesting point, right? That I think so much of that story is like difficult aspects, and like this month on the podcast, we're focusing in on what you said. You said before we started filming, no good captain of the sea was ever forged by calm waters, right? It's the captains that have been through the storm, that have seen the mile high waves. In your life, talk to me about that. Your experience with that, of how has character been formed through the difficulty, through the moments that you look back on and go, I would never wish that upon anybody, and yet I wouldn't be who I am without these moments, right? If you ask anybody, talk to me about 5 pivotal moments in your life, very rarely are they 5 amazing things that happened to them. What's that been like in your life?
Yeah, I mean, that's just the essence of character. It's like it comes from trouble, you know? I mean, there's very few things, if any. I'd be more hard pressed to, you know, tell you 5 things that came from, you know, easiness or comfort. And so it is life. It is the risks that you take. And that's why I love doing it. It's like I can look back on those stories. Life is just like those hikes. And I think that's kind of that ingrained piece to me, especially of just going, that's why I did those, because it was hard. And I knew that hard would, on the other side, would be a good story. It'd be fun. I mean, we have the camaraderie that we have with even the people that went on that trip, and some people who'd never been before, but like, can I go on one of those trips with you, you know? And getting to know them, you know, and it's wrestling alongside, making those hard decisions. Do we do this or do we do that? You know, and then all being in it together. It's all of that. And that's just an analogy for life. You know, everything is like that. You know, I think anyone who wishes, you know, comfort is just wishing for a boring life, you know, and wishing to be lesser of a man or a woman in a sense. And then when you get to that point where you realize that's where who you are really shines, and that's where you really truly find out what you like and what you don't like, who you are and who you're not, is in the fire, the testing, you know. And so I think all of life, I mean, I could go through stories, but every hard time you come out the other side and you go, wow, you know, and that's the opportunity to then speak into someone else's life. I think even in the sermon this last week, Larry made that comment of going, you're wishing for miracles. Well, miracles were done for people who couldn't walk, couldn't see, or were dead. You know, it's like God didn't perform miracles. Well, it's like, hey, I'm doing great. My finances are good. God, can you do a miracle? And he's like, for what?
Right.
You know, it's like, what do you need? You don't need anything.
Yeah.
And I think when you get to that point, you go, man, when I'm at my lowest, that's when the miracle comes. When I'm dead or dying, that's when a miracle can happen. Without hard times, what is there to miraculously happen? You know,
you and I are both San Diego transplants. You know, Mississippi, Hume, for me, Ecuador, kind of bounced all over California and then landed here in San Diego. How do you manufacture that here? Like, I think about like my students, my leaders, a lot of San Diego people, like we live a pretty comfortable life in San Diego. How do you seek after those character forming experiences and get out of your comfort zone here?
Yeah, it's tough. And that's why I think it takes a greater degree of intentionality. That's one thing we noticed with our kids when we first moved from Hume. Our kids are total camp kids, you know, like they grew up in the woods, and that was part of it. I remember the very first day our kids went to a normal public school, like a regular school most people think is normal. My son comes home, we're like, how was it? And he's like, they don't let you climb the trees. And we're like, yeah, about that, you know. And it's like, that was his thing. And he's like, why not? What are they there for then?
I love that he was like a missionary kid.
Yeah,
like
totally
entering back in.
So his whole perspective was that. And I feel like that's the comfort level. It's common here to just go, well, where do you find that adventure? And I think what I would say is if you don't look for it, you won't find it. So you have to be looking for it. You have to look for those things that stretch your adventure, stretch your, you know, comfort zone. So it is harder. I think for me, I used to scuba dive. I haven't gotten back into it. It's one of those things what I find my station in life now is like everything I used to do, I had buddies or partners, and it was easy bake. Let's go climbing, you know. And it was like I had a guy who was a lead climber, and I'd go, and I was a follower, you know. He'd lead, I'd clean, kind of a thing, and that worked really well. And then you get into this life where it's you and your kids, and you know, and then it's like, well, who's that partner? I don't have that close of a friend anymore who our schedules work, and you know, that's been difficult for me, at least in where I'm at. But requires that extra degree of intentionality. So it's like you can't go scuba diving by yourself, or you shouldn't.
Yeah,
you know,
shouldn't.
those
You
kind of
shouldn't.
things.
Dude, let's go
You
scuba
can go
diving.
rock climbing, but you shouldn't, by yourself. So it does get harder, especially when you don't have that community around you to share those, shared adventures.
I'll be your scuba diving partner.
Okay, let's do it.
Brown always talks about how awesome it is, and I've never done it.
It's amazing.
I've snorkeled like in the
whole
I
nother
get to
world.
snorkel in like the Galapagos and like some crazy places, and it's nuts. But I would like dive down and chase the little like black tipped sharks, whatever, turtles.
Oh yeah.
But I've always been like, I wish I could breathe down here.
Oh yeah. It's another world, and it's so fun.
I tried
miss it
so bad.
I miss being able to do it. That was my thing when I got here. I even signed up on Meetup for a scuba diving group that meets down in La Jolla, and never got to go.
I mean, a lot of people say La Jolla is like one of the greatest scuba diving.
20, 30 minutes from one of the best places that I've heard of.
Golly. So, why are we not doing that?
I don't know.
Let's freaking do it.
Life.
Okay, last question for you as we wrap up here. How do you chase after that in a way that doesn't like become... I just feel like for me and my personality, and maybe this is unique to me, but it feels like these pendulum swings where I either like, okay, I need to chase after adventure, and that becomes like everything.
Right.
And then I start thinking about, my family, my kid, for me, like job, and I'm like, okay, I can't neglect these things.
Right. There's a trade-off.
But then the pendulum swing, it feels like it goes the opposite way into this like, you almost seep into comfort, and then comfort's like hard to get out of.
Yeah.
And I love right now the movement towards like cold water therapy and like hot saunas and stuff. Like I was listening to Joe Rogan podcast. He has a tub that he sits in 39-degree water every day just to shock his system. Because he goes, we live in America.
Yeah.
It's comfortable and it's
good for you. There could be some neural damage that you might have to consider.
Maybe. He goes from 189 degrees in his sauna to 39 degrees in his cold water therapy.
You can't do that too much. That'll jack up your nervous system, I think.
Bananas.
But it is, the concept is good.
Yeah, the concept of just kind of shocking your system a little bit. I don't know, in 60 seconds or less, like what would you say for anybody listening to this, young adults in our community, high school students, what's a step you can take towards getting out of your comfort zone and seeking those opportunities to build character?
Gosh, I think it is finding the right community. What I found looking back into which has been a while for me, it was finding those groups of friends who would encourage me to be fun, but not in a way that was unproductive or destructive or, vandalistic or something like that. Because that quickly can feel like adventure,
right?
By pushing the boundaries. But there's such a healthier balance in nature and in adventure and in activities and sports, and the camaraderie that you get from that without the negative downer of guilt or shame or consequences is by far better. And, and it's where you're headed as an adult, because one day pushing those boundaries you realize is just foolishness.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. That's good. I think we sometimes seek to push those boundaries for the story, and it's like, So no building spray paint bombs and blaming it on me.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
I think our lawyers. I should probably say something.
Yeah, I held back some stuff that I thought wouldn't be helpful for 9th graders.
That's good. All right, Kip, my man. Thanks. Always a pleasure. 20 minutes flies by with you.
Yeah, that's fun.
We'll have you back on sometime soon. Thanks, NineTen. Catch you next time.